Welcome back to the Synergistic CX podcast. This is part 2 of our 3-part episode where we're focusing on the customer experience at bookstores with our special guest from Sweden, Lina Schölin, CEO of Better Business in Stockholm. In our previous segment, we discussed how bookstores handle responses to online reviews and also how the marketing mix is reflected in those reviews. Now we'll look at the customer journey to see how success is really defined in this industry. From the very first moment when a customer walks through the door or even discovers a bookstore's website online, every interaction really contributes to how that brand is perceived. And in a world where customers are used to convenience, and often it's a click away with their digital devices and such, physical bookstores actually need to deliver those memorable, frictionless experiences in a really clean manner and consistently to keep their readers coming back. So let's start with the customer journey map. Every aspect of the journey of a customer is important, and this starts with a very basic need identification. That's where the customer realizes, hey, I need to have something. I need to experience something, or I have a product that I'm after. And that's the first part of what we call the customer journey. If you're not familiar with this concept, it's just like a road. You start at some point on the road and you travel down the road, and at the end of the road, you're done with your journey. And in the case of bookstores, that starts off with identifying that need that I mentioned, and then it moves on through various other stages and steps of the process. From there, the customer will research the various bookstores that are available to them, whether that's online or offline, and then they'll actually, in most cases, travel to the store and experience the greeting from the bookstore staff. As they move through the customer journey, they move through these other steps where they're experiencing the ambiance of the bookstore, and they're looking at the availability of the books, they're engaging with the staff, and so on, all the way to the end of their journey, where ideally they turn into a word of mouth loyalist for that brand because they had such a great experience. So this is the customer journey. Here we have on the screen a breakdown of the customer journey. And you'll see at the top, there are 5 different stages: awareness, consideration, conversion, retention, and advocacy. Now, when we take these online reviews and we process them with our ABSA analysis, we map all of the various portions that the customers mention in their reviews to one of these stages. Underneath each of these 5 stages, you'll see 11 individual steps. So these are the smaller components of each stage. For example, on the top left, you'll see the awareness stage, and below that is the need identification and exploration. And below that, you'll see the various touch points that they experience with that brand. So they might hear about the brand via online forums, social media sites, book review sites, author websites, for example. And off to the right, you'll see each of these additional steps in their customer journey and the various touch points that they experience along the way, whether it's staff, or the payment system, or the live chat they might experience online on an online website, and so on. So what we do is we take these various reviews and we, as Emil explained, we take the aspects of each part of the customer journey that were mentioned in those reviews, and we map those based on the sentiment of that particular aspect. So if a customer complains about a staff member, we note that, and that is reflected in that aspect of that customer journey. Similarly, if somebody says something great about the variety of books, then we map that aspect with a positive sentiment on the customer journey as well. On the next page, we will step into our wonderful moment of truth, is what we call, where we take the customer journey and we actually map it out graphically so we can see what the results look like from all of these online reviews that we've analyzed. And we'll have a look and see what stages are performing well and what steps and stages are not so well. And we can actually look at all of this information very easily and get some good insights. So before we actually jump into looking at the map itself and how the results are for bookstores, I tend to ask, what do people think is strong or what's going to be weak? Does anybody have any opinions on what we might see with bookstores here?
We already saw in the previous slides that price and process had some issues. So my guess is price is going to show.
Yeah, that has been a
And
constant in a lot of industries. Yeah.
And that's most likely probably related to payment.
yeah, but in terms of positive things, I think that there is, if you make the parallel with the bookstores and the music stores, and those are two industries that were impacted by the online revolution and online shopping, there is something that bookstores handled much better than music stores, which is the retention of customers and the advocacy. So I would say that those areas we will score higher here in our study.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense to me. In a lot of cases, a bookstore is people just enjoy going there. If they want to go and they have a good experience, they like to come back, and it becomes almost a second home for a lot of people. So, yeah.
Yeah, and you have bookstores that are dedicated to some topics like comics or sci-fi, for example. Or if it's a larger bookstore, it's very common nowadays across all countries that I have visited that the employees will have a badge saying that my specialty is sci-fi or comics or manga or whatever it is. So it depends a lot on the interaction.
Okay. Well, let's have a look. Let's see what we see.
See, there you go.
Wow. Okay, well, let's talk about this, but first let's describe to our audience what they're looking at. So you can see here across the top of this customer journey map the 5 stages for the customer journey. And there's the awareness, consideration, conversion, retention, and advocacy on the top. You'll see below that at the bottom the 11 different steps that are part of those customer journey stages. You'll see the line in the middle there is the average of the sentiment for that particular step. And looks like it's actually doing pretty well here, which is no surprise. I mean, you're talking about a 4.33 average globally. So a lot of good yellow and green metrics here. And we take these aspects and we plot them here, and we show you not only the average of each step, but we show you the frequency of how often the aspects in that particular step are mentioned. And you can see that by the size of those circles. So for example, in the conversion stage there's a lot of large green circles, which means that those particular steps were mentioned quite a lot in the online reviews. The smaller circles were not mentioned as frequently. So the gray blob represents the variance, or the one standard deviation around the mean, if you want to get technical with it, with respect to the range of responses that were received for that particular aspect. So a large gray blob area will indicate that there was a lot of variance and a wide range of review results for that particular step, whereas a narrow gray blob area will represent that there was a lot of consistency, a lot of tight, frequent references around that particular point, and much less variance in the actual results that we saw in the online reviews. So looking here, yeah, it looks like things are really strong in the conversion stage. So what do we have for steps here? We've got the experiencing the bookstore ambiance, book availability and variety, engagement with the staff, and the specialized bookstore services. So yeah, this maps with what we saw with the marketing mix. I mean, people talk a lot about these areas and they value them very heavily. And it looks like overall bookstores are doing very well with those, and people talk about them a lot. Now, what is interesting is the variance that I mentioned there. If you see in the conversion step, the first large green circle there under experience bookstore ambiance, the average is very high. It's nice and green. Most people will be very happy with that. But you'll see the variance is actually pretty wide. That gray blob has a pretty good spread to it, which means there's potentially a lot of inconsistency there. Even though the overall average is good, there's still going to be some poor representation here from the bookstores, at least in the customer's eyes. And yeah, Christiani, I think that your loyalist referrals piece there was dead on. That last little circle all the way on the right is the highest thing on the entire graph. But once again, the variance there is also very, very large.
Yeah, this is a business that depends a lot of loyalty on terms of loyalty, and it's something that you're not going there just for you, right? It is something that you also go to buy gifts, and if you're buying a book for someone, the recommendation from the employee is a key moment of truth to help you sort out what is the best gift that you can give. So that's why it's so high.
Lina, are there any surprises here that you see, or are you thinking this is kind of what you were expecting?
Well, kind of expecting, since the previous graphs had shown, I would say.
So the greeting from the bookstore staff, that's an interesting one to look at here. That's a large yellow circle there kind of on the left. And the blob itself is very tight. The variance is tight. So consistently, the greeting from the bookstore staff is not great. And a lot of customers talk about it. And anecdotally, I mean, that actually aligns with my personal experience in bookstores. If you engage someone, they're great. But no one really often says hello to you or welcome or anything like that. And it seems like a small thing, but obviously customers are very much talking about that. And you wouldn't think this, but a bookstore can also be intimidating too. Like if you go in, Christiane, like you mentioned, you're looking for a gift for someone and you don't know where to start, you have to break the ice and actually talk with someone to kind of get the conversation started. And if the bookstore staff member does that for you, then it really helps to, I think, increase the customer experience overall. Pricing and payment, also a lower area there. And yeah, see, it seems like there's probably some customer frustration there that could be alleviated with some improvements. So looking along at our key takeaways here, we see excellent conversion performance. And that's no surprise based on what we saw with the marketing mix. The ambiance is generally very good, and there's usually a wide variety of titles, and the staff interactions are great. And so there's a lot of excellent feedback there from the customers, and it shows that these companies really seem to overall have a very compelling in-store experience. We did see that the staff greeting and the pricing areas are pieces that could be focused on and improved. A lot of those mentions fell into the fair category, the yellow category, and it could definitely be improved. We see that the experience measurement could be refined. There's a noticeable sentiment variance in the awareness and the retention stages. And so some more granular feedback tools, something other than online reviews, like something like follow-up surveys or some sort of a customer interaction and sampling could really capture perspectives in a more refined way and really help to identify some specific pain points and address those. And as we saw with Christiane's observation, the consistency really builds the reader loyalty. So the customer journey map was overall very good. And it's reflected in that high loyalty. I mean, that's the highest we've seen from any industry. So it's really a testimony to exactly how much the customer experience being top notch can really help to retain customers and keep them coming back into the door. All right, so now we'll step into the marketing mix funnel matrix. This is always an interesting chart to explain. So what we've done here with the marketing mix funnel matrix is if you look across the top, you see these 5 different stages that are straight from our customer journey. So we have awareness, consideration, conversion, retention, and advocacy. Those are the same 5 stages we saw in the customer journey map. And down the left side, we actually have the 7 Ps from the marketing mix: the people, the product, the place, price, process, promotion, and physical evidence. And then what we've done is we've integrated the 2 together here on this chart to analyze the customer experience data. And we can see all of the different intersections of the stages with the marketing mix and see where negative sentiment was encountered. So, for example, the largest red bar there, the 28.92%, is under consideration and people. And what that means is that almost 29% of the negative sentiment that was expressed in the various reviews, the aspects fell into that particular stage and that particular part of the marketing mix. So the specific steps and touch points that the customer was encountering, they were mentioning negatively about the consideration and the people. Similarly, you can see that there are a few others here that have these black arrows that were relatively high as far as what portion of the negative reviews they comprised. And so this lets you see very quickly what areas could be improved from the customer's perception based on the online reviews and ratings. So even though the conversion stage had a very high rating overall, if you recall, we saw a whole bunch of green large circles there. People talk about a lot about that particular stage a lot, and the steps in those stages, they talk about those steps a lot, and they were averaged very, very highly. However, there was a wide variance there, and you can see that reflected here in the marketing mix funnel matrix. And so there's quite a bit of opportunity to push those green circles up even higher and also tighten up that variance so that there's not as much negative reviews being spread around by the customers out there posting those reviews. So these are some opportunities where you can remove those negative experiences and turn the bookstore experience into nothing but positive. So we've seen the customer journey map now, and the next step will be to talk about collecting feedback in other ways. So looking at the online reviews is one way to measure customer experience, but there's other ways to measure customer experience as well. And one of those is a voice of the customer survey. So Emil will take us now through creating a starter voice of the customer survey for bookstores, and we'll see what that looks like.
Sure. So far, we have been discussing results based on online reviews and ratings, and we are starting with online reviews and ratings because these are easy to capture because they're readily available. They are what they are. They just need to be captured and analyzed. However, in the realm of voice of the customer feedback surveys are critical supplement to the more common online reviews and ratings. A significant challenge for businesses, however, associated with the voice of the customer surveys is to effectively capture valuable feedback within the constrained attention span afforded by customers. And what I mean by this is we simply have a very limited time to answer a very limited number of questions, a handful of questions. And the challenge is how to construct the VOC survey that it takes the most feedback which is pointed to the business and to the challenges of the business. And this is what we are going to suggest here, how to create a starter VOC survey based on what we have already identified about the micro industry and about potentially a specific business based on the online reviews and ratings analyzed so far. So, as I mentioned earlier, we don't have a lot of time allotted by the customers, and we can probably answer 5 questions at most. And what we are suggesting here is a relatively simple structure for a starter VOC survey, where we start with a primary question, which is a customer satisfaction question. Then we go through 5 key drivers of the customer sentiment, and more so the negative customer sentiment, which we have identified previously from the online reviews and ratings. And then for each key driver, if the rating is below 5 stars, then we will drill down into more details about that key driver, and then we'll close with an NPS question. So let's see how this looks for the bookstores micro industry specifically. I'll go back to the mixed funnel matrix chart that Eric explained earlier. We have the stages on top, and we have the marketing mix elements on the side. And what Eric has identified is that the 5 most negative intersections between the customer journey and the marketing mix were the 4 conversion intersections and the 1 consideration If we, however, dive deeper into those 5 cells, and this deeper dive is visible on the table below, on the second table on this slide, we can see that the weakest performing step, or the 5 weakest performing steps, are greeting from bookstore staff, book availability and variety, experience bookstore ambience, engagement with staff, and pricing and payment. And what we have here in the parentheses is the sticker price. So this is additional information that we see from the reviews, that with regards to payment and pricing, the sticker price, or more so the inconsistency between the sticker price and the actual price which was built at the register, is creating a lot of a decently good amount of negative feedback in the conversion price cell. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take those 5 weakest performing steps, and we're going to build a voice of the customer survey based on those. And what we can see here is the final format of this starter VOC survey. So we're starting with a satisfaction question. How satisfied are you with the brand? Then we are going to ask 5 questions associated with the most negative performance, with the highest negative performance, starting from the greeting from our bookstore staff and finishing with the clarity of pricing and the sticker price match. And so these are the bluish bubbles. And what we can see is that we have additional drill down. So going back to the first blue bubble, initial, so how satisfied are you with the initial greeting from our bookstore staff? If the satisfaction is 5 stars, we'll move on to the next question. But if it is anything between 1 and 4 stars, then we're going to ask a follow-up question, which will inquire, is it the prompt acknowledgement? Is it the warm and the friendly attitude? Is it the clear communication? Is it the eye contact? Or is it the immediate assistance that we as a brand fell short with your expectations? So just to summarize, the starter VOC survey is intended to provide, our starter VOC survey framework is intended to provide a guidance as to how to build a relatively short but impactful VOC survey based on the knowledge from the online reviews and ratings, based on what customers talk about the most in the most negative way, so that we can dive deeper into those customer thoughts and feelings and get better understanding with regards to those.
Lina, we've talked about online reviews and ratings. We've talked about VOC surveys. And if, based on your experience, if you were building a customer experience program for a bookstore customer of yours, how would you approach it? What research methodologies would you consider first, and what combinations do you believe deliver the best return on investment?
I think in general that you really need to understand your customers. Who are they? What are the interactions that you have with them, and what interactions do they have with other brands as well, in order to build the customer journey, or as we call it, the customer path, where you try to define each and every touch point before, during, and after, and break down each part of the process like a blueprint, really. What interactions are you having and what could go wrong? I actually did a research paper on how retailers in general could increase their customer experience in omni-channels. It can, of course, be adapted with modifications into any type of industry and channel. And these were my findings. In short, it's a 10-step process model. It's the step 1 where you define the problem. Which problem are you helping your customers to solve? And number 2 is to research and understand your customers and define the key elements of their experience. What do they want to feel before, during, and after? And define the optimal customer journey in each channel, and use case studies what customers are looking for in each channel, and apply the elements that are similar to each channel. And of course, this could be done in only one channel as well. And then step 4 is to build a customer journey and the how together with your employees by using a service blueprint. It could be an educational tool. And step 5 is to find the common basis between, or to find a minimum level of hygiene factors between the channels. And some factors will, of course, remain channel specific because of customizations. And in step number 6, it's about handling complaints, which should be a totally separate channel. And here we have the opportunity to turn a dissatisfied customer into an ambassador, which is very important, as we were talking about the replying to the reviews. And number 7 is implementation requires commitment from top management. So this is like CEO level. It must feel like a matter of urgency internally. And I think that step 8 is to have a dedicated customer experience manager across all channels. And this is what I really found in my research, that not a lot of companies have this specific person in place within the organization. But they really should, and have a sub-manager in each channel to ensure that the different channels don't live their separate lives. So the customer will have different customer experience within the different channels. Mm-hmm. And step number 9 would have your employees. They are your brand, and they create the customer experience, like in the bookstores with the greetings. If you don't greet them, the customers won't really be satisfied. So regardless of channel, or focus on recruitment, onboarding, and feedback for the employees so they can evolve and develop. And the last step is number 10, where you, of course, measure your performance with the voice of customer and also with objective customer experience tool, such as mystery shopping. Cross the data, find the synergies, and put the time on the analyze part, and act, and foremost communicate the KPIs internally, and to keep this alive and give it constantly feedback to the organization.
Mm-hmm. So it really needs to be a full, comprehensive, top-down approach, starting with the management to get the buy-in for them to tackle the concept in general. Yeah, it's interesting what you mentioned about the omni-channel experience, because there's, at least in my experience, there's very few companies that do that well. That's a big challenge, to try to make a transparent and clean and consistent customer experience across all the different channels that the brand offers.
So that's actually really interesting, because it's also my experience working with several contact centers around the world. And one of our mantras in the contact center industry is that if you have any solution that says that you can integrate omni-channel experience in a way that is seamless and easy, our conclusion is that the organization actually does not understand what omni-channel experience is, because there's nothing simple about that.
This is the end of part 2 of our 3-part episode here on the Synergistic CX podcast, where we're focusing on bookstores. In the next segment, we will have a more in-depth discussion with our special guest, Lina Schölin from Better Business, regarding the customer experience in this industry. And remember that you can download the details of this industry study for free on our website, cx-channel.com. And you can also follow the CX channel on LinkedIn, YouTube, or your favorite social media to stay on top of each of our monthly podcasts. Be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss our next episode.